Welcome to Topics, your daily news about China. I'm Derek. On 30th of September, Israel launched a ground invasion of Lebanon for the first time since 2006. Although the Israel Defense Forces claimed that their operations on Lebanese soil were limited, localized, and targeted against Hezbollah, the Chinese government still decided to evacuate most of its citizens and their family members. This decision was made in consideration of the deteriorating situation in Lebanon. According to Matthew Hollingworth, the World Food Programme's country director in Lebanon, Lebanon's ability to feed itself has been severely undermined by the IDF's destruction of its agriculture and food production industry. In one of Lebanon's most productive areas, 4,700 acres of agricultural land have been burned in the south of the country, and 30,000 acres of farmland have been abandoned due to fears of Israel's limited, localized, and targeted airstrikes. The crisis has heavily impacted 46,000 Lebanese farmers, with no olive harvest in the south, and the same for the bananas and the citrus fruits. Vegetables will rot in the fields, he said. To prevent Chinese citizens from facing food shortage and to reduce Lebanon's burden, China completed the evacuation operation within 2 days. According to Xinhua News Agency, the evacuation was conducted in 2 phases. The first group of 69 Chinese nationals and 11 foreign family members set sail for Cyprus, and the second group, including 146 citizens and 5 foreign family members, returned safely to Beijing on a chartered flight. As of October 8th, 215 Chinese citizens have returned home through the evacuation organized by the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, including 3 Hong Kong and 1 Taiwan resident. On 30th of September, the first group boarded the New Xiamen, a vessel owned by a state-run enterprises, and after a 30-hour journey, they arrived safely at the Limassol port. According to one of the evacuated Chinese citizens, children and pregnant women were given priority and seated in more comfortable spots. On 1st of October, Air China flight CCA-061 flew into Beirut International Airport, a facility that had been out of commission for nearly 2 weeks due to Israeli airstrikes. Despite no control tower staff and worsening conditions on the ground, the flight successfully brought 146 Chinese nationals and 5 foreign family members back to Beijing the next day. According to the Beijing Evening News, Mr. Dai, part of the second group, shared that before his flight took off, he needed to use the bathroom. An embassy staff member escorted him to the restroom and waited outside to ensure he didn't get lost. At such a critical moment, the embassy staff were afraid that anyone might be left behind. While Chinese citizens celebrated the successful return of their compatriots, another piece of news from Lebanon caught their attention, this time about evacuation plans by the UK and the US government. In Chinese government-organized evacuations, the costs are usually covered by the state, and the citizens do not need to pay for their transportation. However, according to the BBC, British citizens had to pay $415 for a seat on a flight, and non-British family members need to a visa valid for at least 6 months. This passed the Chinese citizens as many British expatriates continue paying taxes to the UK. So why should they pay extra for an evacuation organized by their government? However, compared to US citizens, the British might consider themselves lucky. At least the ticket price was somewhat affordable. According to Reuters, the US organized a flight from Beirut to Istanbul on October 2nd to help its citizens leave Lebanon. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said Washington had been working with airlines since September 28 to make seats available on commercial flights. Interestingly, the plane could seat 300 people, but only about 100 persons boarded. An American citizen on Twitter explained why. The commercial flight cost an astonishing $8,000. As one commenter noted, this amount could buy an iPhone 16 for every family member back home. After questioning the State Department about the high price, the response was, "We will give you a loan." According to ABC News, the State Department has advised Americans to leave Lebanon on commercial flights for months. noting that the government ran Evacuation, a rare and offering emergency loans to help with travel costs. Meanwhile, Pentagon spokesman Sabrina Singh said that an evacuation was not being considered at the moment, but assured the public that the U.S. military is on the ready with a wide range of plans. She emphasized that if an evacuation becomes necessary, the military absolutely can make it happen. It seems Ms. Singh may have forgotten the U.S. military's last major evacuation effort in Afghanistan, that chaotic withdrawal at the Hamid Karzai International Airport, so desperate people cling to the wings of an American military cargo plane, with some tragically falling from the sky after takeoff. The Washington Post reported that the evacuation left hundreds of Americans and tens of thousands of Afghans stranded, despite promises of rescue. Whether in Lebanon or during other crises like Hurricane Helene, American politicians often cite a lack of funds as the excuse. Yet, according to an October 9 report from AP, the U.S. has spent a record $17.9 billion in military aid to Israel since the Gaza war began, escalating conflict across the Middle East. If that money had been used to help American taxpayers, it could cover the $8,000 tickets for over 2 million Americans from Beirut. Perhaps if the U.S. had not provided such significant military aid to Israel, Beirut wouldn't have been bombed in the first place.